you hear me?
Yep,
Awesome.
there you are. Okay, are we good?
I think we're good. So we're just gonna wait until 2:30 to start because everyone's taking a break, and then I'll let them into the room.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. It's a quick break, but a much needed break. So hopefully everyone got a chance to stretch and then they're ready for our final presentation of the day. So today we have with us, oh my gosh,
Should I help out
there we go. Nope, I got you. I got you. My agenda was like scrolling away from me.
I can really relate to that.
There's always something, man. Okay. So today we have Dr. Crystal Tack with us, and she is coming from the Sequim Clinic for Acupuncture and Naturopathic Medicine. And she is also duly licensed naturopathic doctor and acupuncturist, which is pretty much in the title itself. So thank you, Crystal. Let's go ahead and welcome her today.
Thank you very, very much. First of all, I want to say that it's such a fun event for me because I haven't spoken for a lot of years in front of a crowd, except when I'm teaching my classes. And I really appreciate Rochelle thinking of me. I also tried to talk her out of it because I said, I am not a typical naturopath. I don't have a PowerPoint, and I'm not doing what a lot of the more modern naturopaths are doing, but I will address that in our meeting today. And she says, no, I really want the way you approach naturopathic medicine. And so here I am. My theme is a little bit more than the future of medicine. I believe it's the present medicine. And I'd like to say that the title that I kind of am more comfortable with is, how does naturopathic medicine fit into your health program now? And the first question, of course, would be, what the heck is naturopathic medicine, for those of you that haven't been exposed to it? So let's talk a little bit about the philosophy of naturopathic medicine. The whole concept is that we have this incredible innate ability to heal. It's life force. It's that life force that pushes the plant through the concrete. It's that life force that makes miracles happen. And it's happening all the time. We just kind of numb out to it because it's, we're just moving along through daily life. But it's a naturopath's responsibility to free up that life force for the healing process. And so what we do is we look for what's in the way of that. And there's a million different ways to go, of course, but what is the obstacle? What's holding back our ability to be our optimally healthy self? This is what you could call cause-based medicine, because we're looking for causes rather than treating the symptoms. You will rarely see a naturopath that addresses one issue at a time, because we're working on that whole interconnectedness of the body, the mind, the spirit, and all the different organs are affecting each other. So if you come in with one symptom, there's a good chance other symptoms are in some way related. So we look at the whole picture. So we take a long time in the first visit because we want to hear every symptom. And we're often told, gosh, it's so nice that somebody really wants to listen to us and hear all our problems, because usually we're just able to talk about 10 minutes of something. So in some ways, we are the original champions of living well. How do we do that? Well, not only do we address each patient individually, because everybody's an individual, so even two people with diabetes or two people with asthma could be treated very differently. But we also are a group of extreme individuals. So there's a lot of different ways that naturopaths approach health. And no matter who you go to, you probably have very different experiences, and they'll have different tools. But there are some basic things that we have in common, which is what is now popularly called functional medicine. That's who we are. That's what we've always done. What's functional medicine? Functional medicine addresses what the body's doing, not just the condition. For instance, at one point, I almost died of a liver condition, and shortly thereafter, all my liver enzymes showed to be normal, but my liver hurt for years afterwards. It wasn't functioning well. And had I done a liver function test, it would have shown that I was very low capacity. But my blood work was fine. Another great example of function versus measurement is with osteoporosis. The DEXA scan will tell you exactly how much bone loss you have, but it doesn't tell you if you're actively losing bone or actively gaining bones. So if you begin a program for your bones and you're treating them, you don't really have any way of determining, well, is this working or is it not working? One of the tests we use is a bone resorption test, and it measures how are the osteoclasts doing, how are the osteoblasts doing, and the osteoblasts are forming bone, the osteoclasts are tearing down bone. And this is the harmony, the circle of life that keeps the bones beautifully healthy. But osteoporosis happens. Why? Well, if we're going to look at cause-based medicine, then we have to find out, why does this person have osteoporosis? Well, mainstream medicine would say, because you're old and you're losing bone and we need to give you Fosamax, or that's not popular anymore, but other medications. How does Fosamax work? Fosamax works by killing the osteoclasts so that the bones are no longer being resorbed. So it stops that wonderful flow between creation and tearing down and keeping everything fresh and new. That's kind of insane, isn't it? So cause-based medicine would be, why is this happening? It's happening most often because in our culture, we have developed, because of stress, because of our diet, a tendency to be very acidic in nature. Well, how does the body handle that? There has to be a very important homeostasis in the bloodstream, or the person will die. If you get too far out of balance with your calcium and different elements, the person cannot sustain life. So if our diet is deficient in calcium, we have a phenomenal backup system. We're amazing. Our backup system is we have this incredible storage of calcium right there in our body that we can live through. And where do we get the calcium? We get it out of our bones. So what's the solution? Killing our osteoclasts, or checking the pH of the system and making sure that we alkalinize, and then making sure we support the body with the right forms of calcium to resupport the bone. Now, is calcium alone sufficient? No, because it takes all kinds of things to absorb calcium back in the bone. So there are wonderful naturopathic formulas that have all kinds of supportive elements so that it goes into the bones, and it helps reform strong bones. That's a great example of functional medicine. We're looking at the function of the bones rather than just determining where the bones are, because a DEXA scan cannot tell you, is it tearing down, is it building up? It can only tell you you've lost 30% of your bone, which I don't know if it's still the facts, but when I learned it, you could not even determine bone loss until there was 30% bone loss with a DEXA scan. That may be different now, I don't know. So functional medicine, how is that organ functioning? Cause-based medicine, go back to the original problem. What's causing this problem? So much more important to treat the body's natural system than to override it, or in this case, even destroy it. Naturopaths are looking listening to the body's, what it's trying to tell us. And sometimes, in spite of a diagnosis, sometimes there's not even a diagnosis and you can still treat the problem. Example, I had a nurse come to me whose husband was an oncologist, and she had been to all the best specialists and nobody could figure out what she had, but she was dying. One kidney had completely atrophied. She was getting gesticulations in her leg, a lot like ALS. She was, other organs were starting to close down. And Nobody could figure out what was going on. And she came to me and I just started treating what the body asked for. And I'll explain that in a little bit, but the body would say, hey, I need this, or hey, I need that, or hey, it hurts here. Would you please address this? And over a period of months, the symptoms subsided and went away. And she was, if you want to call it cured or in remission, we don't know because we don't know what it was, but it worked. Because the body has this innate ability. It doesn't care what it's called. It just has this ability to heal if it's given what it needs to heal. Well, how do naturopaths diagnose different problems? We use the mainstream labs and scans and other things that you're used to, but we also use functional labs like the one I just described with the with osteoporosis. Another really good example of a functional lab is a complete digestive stool analysis. The gut is core to everything, and I have no idea what percent, but a very, very high percent of people now have gut problems. So it has to be addressed because it is, for instance, 90% of our serotonin is produced in the gut. And serotonin is our happy hormone. So people that are running around with a lot of anxiety, which is also rampant, probably are not creating enough serotonin because their gut's probably in problem. That's one symptom. There's a lot of different causes, but that's one of the basic ones that we need to make sure is in good health. And right now, with our diets the way they are, and with our stress the way it is, that becomes a challenge. So one of the first things we can do is let's take a look at the gut and how is it working? Does it have enough of the good flora? Antibiotics kill off the good flora. So it's really important to know all the varieties of flora and if they are in balance and they're doing what they need to be doing. Because not only do they create serotonin, but there's all kinds of other neurotransmitters and things that are so important to creating the balance in the body. It has to do with so many different body functions. Even a normal menstrual cycle is dependent on a healthy gut. It's amazing. So the gut analysis that I discussed, it checks flora, it checks to see if there's any bacteria that doesn't belong there, it checks for parasites, it checks to see if we're breaking down our carbohydrates, our proteins, our fats. How is the gut functioning? A very important test that probably most Americans would profit from. So what are other ways that we evaluate? Like I say, we do all the usual scans. So if there's something that needs to be an MRI or an X-ray or a CAT scan, we can prescribe that too. But in the office, we have other ways of diagnosing things. There's palpation. I do a lot of palpation, palpate the liver, palpate the gallbladder, palpate the gut. It's so important. And then being an acupuncturist, I also palpate a lot of different acupuncture points and see how is the body doing? What's in balance? What's out of balance? There's reflex testing. And again, there's a huge variety of testing that different doctors do depending on their specialties, their interests. One of my favorite in-office testing is called neurolingual testing. Because with this test, again, the patient gets to see their own body making those choices like I referred to earlier with my patient that was dying from we don't know what. So when I do neurolingual testing, there are specific reflexes for specific organs. So let's say I'm checking the thyroid and the thyroid reflex point is tender. Well, then I will take a tablet of a combination for the thyroid and I'll put it under the tongue and have them, not actually in the mouth, and have them suck on it for 30 seconds. And if that tenderness is gone, then that's what the body's asking for. Let's say the tenderness isn't gone. So I've gone through a couple different thyroid formulas. Thyroid point is still sensitive. So then I will go to one of my old standbys, which is glutathione. And glutathione is the most prevalent and important antioxidant in the liver, and the liver cannot do its job of detoxing properly without enough glutathione, which happens to be a rampantly deficient nutrient in our body. There's probably at least over 50% of our population is deficient in glutathione. And so oftentimes, if that is used, that thyroid will go, okay, I'm not stressed anymore. I can function now because my liver can function now, my body can function now. So glutathione is a great standby when nothing else seems to be working. Recently, I had a gal come in who almost every point on her body was excessively tender. Her tissues were tight and just swollen and hard and tender. And so I just kind of marveled at what I was going to do for this woman. She and her husband had come from an environment, that's a town that was particularly toxic, and all of their classmates, they said just everybody either had MS, which he had, or some other kind of severe and chronic condition, or were dead. And these folks were only like in their 50s. So it was a little bit overwhelming to go, okay, what am I going to do? Where are we going to start with this? I palpated her thyroid point and checked. It was tender like everything else was. I checked different thyroid formulas, nothing worked. I went to my standby glutathione, it didn't work. And then poof, I went, we're going to check iodine. I put iodine in her mouth. 30 seconds later, not only was her thyroid reflex completely neutral, but all the pain in her body, almost all the points, were just gone. And she was in amazement. But this is not an unusual experience. Sometimes there's just one missing ingredient and the whole body gets thrown off severely. So again, that's one of the fun things that I like to work with, because it's so rewarding, because the person gets to see it right then and there. So what does an office visit look like? Again, that is tremendously individual. There's so many changes in medicine in general. When I was in medical school, the allopathic, which is mainstream medicine, the allopathic philosophy was that food had nothing to do with health. It's hard to even imagine it now, but I remember just being totally befuddled and thinking, how could anybody believe that? When I was in medical school, the naturopaths would not consider doing pharmaceuticals because they felt that was completely contrary to naturopathic philosophy. Well, now we're meeting somewhere in the middle, and obviously nobody believes that food is not relevant to our health anymore. And naturopaths are starting to use pharmaceuticals. So again, it differs very greatly between naturopaths what their approach is. But overall, the one thing that we do have in common is we usually take a great deal of time, like I said, an hour and a half for initial intake, because we believe everything is connected, and we're seeking patterns of what's going on with this person's health. Where is their weak link? What organ system isn't working quite up to par? What happened in their past that could be a piece of the puzzle? So my approach to naturopathic medicine is, first of all, different than the average naturopath at this point. Because if Rochelle had asked an average naturopath, you'd be getting all kinds of PowerPoints, and you'd be having a background of a mainstream medical office, and it would be very professional. I'm in my home, and though I have always been what I believe is at the front of the wave of the therapies, I approach things a little differently overall. By saying I've been at the front of the wave of therapies, I just want to give you a little bit of my history. I was the first acupuncturist in Olympia. I was the first acupuncturist on the Olympic Peninsula. And now there's a plethora of us, and it's wonderful to see the popularity grow. When I started what's that? Oh, that's psychosomatic medicine. Now nobody says that. Now it's kind of a household word. I brought the first hyperbaric to the peninsula 10 years ago, and nobody really knew anything about hyperbaric medicine. And now it's just starting to gain in popularity. And I've brought another number of modalities to the fore. Yet I'm very old school in my stance as far as being natural, as far as being holistic. When my son was starting grade school, I moved my office to my house from my downtown office. And I planned on moving it back when, he didn't need me at home anymore. I didn't want him to be a latchkey or in somebody else's care. I just thought, well, he can tinker around and play in the yard and do all that stuff, and I can be doing what I do. But instead, I have brought it all home. And now my entire downstairs is office. I have a main office, and I have a second room that I do acupuncture in as well. And I have another room for the hyperbarics. I have 2 hyperbarics in another room. And adjacent to this building is a because I also have a variety of trees. I have huge cottonwoods and pines and all these beautiful trees that they help hold the energy. Tons of underbrush for the quail. He's kind of a character, and a variety of chickens, and everybody laughs when they see the chickens. So together we create a sense of balance and a place that people like to be, and it feels good. It feels healing. It feels safe. So that's the beginning of the treatment, just coming here. Also, over the last 20 years, I've put more and more natural things in. I've replaced, carpet with wood floor and linoleum with tile, and just becoming ever more healing, safe environment. Part of my also perhaps old style, also new style belief is that as much as I appreciate the availability of antibiotics, I believe that they're rarely needed. And that if we took responsibility to understand our own individual needs, we would rarely need to override our natural process. Let me explain that a little bit. When I eat grains, I get heartburn. If I keep eating them, I get achy joints. So should I keep eating them and take some anti-inflammatory? Or should I just stop eating them because my body doesn't really appreciate them? It doesn't have a way to process them. When I have caffeine, coffee, I feel great, and then I feel depressed. It doesn't work for me. It's too harsh for me. And this is me individually. We're all different, and that's what this is about, is what works for you, what doesn't work for you. I had a gal come in, and I was muscle testing, and I said, gee, I'm not getting you good on carrots and squash. I can't, that's like, I've never seen that before. And she says, oh, no, I don't. She says, I'm totally allergic to carrots and squash. They make me feel horrible. And I'm going, wow, that's a first. And I had another patient come in, and I said, well, I'm getting spinach for you, and I just don't get that. I'm not sure. And she said, well, I'm fine on spinach. So I said, well, I'm probably wrong. It's fine. Later that week, she calls me back, and she says, guess what? She says, I had some spinach and I feel terrible. You're right. Spinach does not work for me. a few years ago, I had a gal come, she was working for me at the time, and she was the picture of health in every way. She just radiated perfection. She did everything right, way beyond my habits. And yet she was always feeling poorly. She had headaches, stomach aches. And so we did some allergy work on her. And when it came back, she just started laughing because in her perfection, she only used olive oil and, really healthy things. And here she was allergic to olives and she was allergic to split peas. And she said to me, I can't believe this. I've had a stomach ache all week and I made a big pot of split pea soup last week. So again, we're so individual, and it's so much our responsibility to figure out what are our individual needs. And with every time we take away something that distracts from our individual health, the more vibrant and vital and empowered we become. I also am somewhat unique in that all naturopaths believe that the emotions and spiritual aspects are a big piece of our health, but not a lot of them address that. It might be coming more so, I don't know. But I have also learned a technique where I spend time with people going to what I call core belief levels, as far as our deep belief levels. Why are you, I'm trying to think of a good example. Doesn't matter. It's just, I'll use an example. So I had a little girl come to me with severe anxiety, and her parents brought in both sisters, and they said, we have raised them exactly the same. We don't get this because the one, she's just fine, but the other one just has terrible anxiety and night terrors, and we just don't know what to do. So I have a way of just kind of going in and asking, and I went, okay, what is going on here? And I said to them, something happened at her birth. What happened at her birth? And they said, oh, that was terrible. Yeah, well, I can't remember the problem. It's been a few years, but basically she had been at such risk when she was born that the very first thing they did was pop her into an MRI. And for those of you who have had an MRI, you know how harsh da 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 that can be. It's like a loud, harsh sound. And imagine coming out of a womb into that. It was traumatizing. So we dealt with that, and her night terrors ended that day. So again, where's the problem? Or problems, there's often, we need to approach it from a few different directions to heal and become all that we can be. So in seeking the answers and seeking my own stability, and I have to say, I don't have a perfect lifestyle, even close. I don't exercise. There's things I would love to do more than I do. But even with what I have chosen to do, I have utter gratitude in being able to say that I've never been hospitalized. I've been able to sidestep several surgeries. I've never had anything pulled or removed, and I have never had antibiotics for 28 years. So I'm doing something right, because my siblings have a different tale to tell, even though I was the least healthy of the children. Know your individual needs. Know how to fight bugs. That's a very important thing that we all need to take responsibility for, in my opinion, because if you take steps, initial right away steps, when you've been exposed to something or when you start to get a little bit of a sore throat, it's my belief you don't need to get sick, at least if you've gotten your health to a certain point. The more we take antibiotics, the more we need them the next time, and the more we need them the next time. So I remember the first few times I got sick after I kind of swore off antibiotics, it wasn't as easy as it is now. So that being said, I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for me. Last spring, I was attacked by something extremely aggressive. And I could feel that it wasn't going to be small. It was going to make me significantly ill. ill enough I was going to need antibiotics or maybe even hospitalization. But I knew what to do. So I took 15 grams of C in a very short period of time. I took over 30,000 IUs of D. I don't remember, maybe 50, maybe more. I don't remember. I just tend to pop pills sometimes when I think I need it, because those kinds of pills you can, and I have the natural intuition to know how much. And I repeated that several times, and it was out of my body in 2 days. I didn't ever get sick at all. I just felt it working on me. So learn what supplements work for you. And it's different supplements for different people. It's different supplements for different bugs. It's kind of like you're having this rapport with this bug, and you have to figure out what your body can do and what its body responds to. And in the process of learning that, find somebody that you can refer to that can help you do that. A lot of this can be done over the phone. And so find a doctor that will work with you to help teach you how to manage your own health, especially how to be aggressive back when something's being aggressive with you. And what this does is it builds your immune system so that you're ready for the next bug and the next bug and the next bug. It's like you don't have to come up with a solution for every bug if you come up with a solution of having your immune system enhanced. Okay, so naturopathic medicine, a little bit about the history, because it deserves it. It's weathered the ultimate test, and it's circling back into being acknowledged as an appropriate approach to health. And it's growing rapidly in popularity. Before the AMA, most people don't know this, naturopaths had hospital privileges. We were an accepted form of treatment. And there was a homeopathic university. There was all kinds of things that were happening a long time ago that almost completely died out. The generation before me in naturopathic school, there was down to, I think it was like even 6 students. And the teachers commuted from Canada and from as far as Idaho to Portland, or no, to Seattle, where the school was at that time, and volunteered just because they wanted to keep naturopathic medicine alive. That's how close it came to becoming extinct. When I started, John Bastyr, the college in Seattle, was its opening year. So I was part of the opening process of John Bastyr. The first day of school, we were told that because of finances, there's a good chance the school would not be able to open that year. That's how fragile everything was. There was probably about 15 of us students at the time. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with John Bastyr now, but it is on the old St. Edward's Monastery campus. They own the building, which is in the middle of the St. Edward Park, which is absolutely stellarly beautiful in Kent. And so they're surrounded by nature. It's just so beautiful, and it's a huge campus. And the library, when I walk into that library, it's just like mind-boggling, because our library, the year I started, it was a little joke that the gal running the office, she opened up the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet and said, "Crystal, do you know what that is?" And there was 3 books in the bottom of the filing cabinet. And I said, "Oh, it looks like 3 books to me." And she says, "That is our library." And now the library is way larger than my entire home, and probably about 5 of them. So I feel so privileged and honored to be part of and watch this process. But what I didn't mention is part of the reason we were so repressed and dying out at one point was the AMA decided that since antibiotics were such a wonderful solution to everything, that most other forms of medicine became suppressed and basically illegal for anyone in the AMA to practice them. And before long, it was not accepted for anybody to be practicing. So that's why we became so close to extinct. Now, not only are we recognized by most insurance companies, but we are coming back into the hospitals. At this point, Swedish hospital have naturopaths in the oncology department working with health programs. So it's a delight to watch the process. Because I'm an acupuncturist and do hyperbaric medicine as well, I just want to mention that there are also very powerful therapies to enhance the body's innate ability to heal. A little bit more about hyperbaric medicine is that it forces oxygen into the system. It sounds kind of harsh, forces, but the oxygen comes into the system under pressure. And so it shrinks down the oxygen molecules and they go into all the tissues that normally would be oxygen deprived. And oxygen is so huge for the healing process that now hyperbaric medicine is used by NFL football teams. On some of those teams, they have the exact chamber I have, one for each football player. And when they come off the field, they get into the chamber because it's so powerful for healing any kind of damage, wounds, brain trauma, concussions. It's basically the treatment of choice for some of those issues. I have seen it be so stellar in brain injuries and any wounds or post-surgical repair type of, and so much more. It's been very exciting. And I also have some new and exciting modalities that are in the wings, but it's not time to talk about those yet. I'm still figuring out how much a part they're going to be playing in my clinic. So with that, if I can figure out how to click on the right thing, I'm happy to take some questions and then we can talk some more if we want to. And I'm not sure how to do that.
Hi, Crystal.
Yes.
I can, whoops. Osteoporosis. What is your opinion of bone scans? And what is the difference between bone scan and DEXA scan, or are they the same?
As far as seeing now, don't know the answer to that, except in my opinion, from what I know, and I could be missing some of the knowledge that I need to answer that accurately, but from what I know, I would call them the same thing. So I'm aware of DEXA scans, and they are what's used to determine bone density.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, we got a couple more and a comment too in between here from one of our attendees. I changed my healthcare provider to a naturopathic doctor about 5 years ago. It has been the best decision I've ever made related to my healthcare. So that's great that she shared that.
Thank you.
The next question is, do you think those home kits that test for food allergies and vitamin issues are a good thing to try?
Oh, there's so many things out there and I am not aware of all of them. So it's not fair for me to answer that question because I don't know the quality of that test kit. But there are so many home test kits now that are very viable and very usable. So, like even you can do home test kits for blood type and for SIBO, which is a way of testing for what's happening in your small intestine, which is,
Mhm.
extremely important. And so I would assume that the allergy testing is probably accurate as well. But I would look it up online and to see what the reviews are for that company.
Okay, thank you. And then we have just one last question here. And unless anyone else has any more questions before we wrap up, please put them in the chat box here so we can pass those along to Crystal. But the last one I have here is, do you recommend getting the COVID-19 vaccine? And if so, which one?
I was sure somebody was going to ask that. Okay. And what I have to say is that's something I really cannot say because it wouldn't be fair. If somebody got COVID-19 and I said, don't do it, then I would be wrong. If somebody gets sick from the COVID-19 shot, then, so it's one of those things where I can tell you what I would do and why, but I cannot tell anybody else what to do because it's very, very individual. I guess the one thing I would say that people who tend to have hypersensitivities are more at risk. And so if you're somebody who has had problems with other vaccines or severe allergies or things like that, then I would be more cautious about that choice. I myself don't, I believe from what I've read, and right now there's so much controversial information about everything. I mean, it's like, I think these last 4 years have taught us that we're just in so much conflict and that information, we don't know what to trust anymore. And that's a very odd position to be in. But the one thing that I do believe is that actually, when we take vaccines, it's a little bit like taking an antibiotic. It doesn't actually enhance our immune system in the long run. It actually weakens our immune system in the long run. So we take a vaccine for one issue, and then what about the next one and the next one? It's like myself, again, I'm old school. Old school naturopaths didn't do vaccines. New school naturopaths do. So I'm going to count on my immune system. I'm going to keep growing it and building it because the healthier I get, the more I believe it will, if I get it, it's not going to be as dramatic because I think there's been a lot of evidence that people that are low in zinc and low in D and low in different nutrients are the ones that tend to get the sickest. And so I'm going to count on my body for this. And I don't know what more to say about that.
Thank you, Crystal. That is some good information. And just adding on personally for myself, you discussed listening to your body and finding, discovering if you eat certain things, how does it make your body feel? Or if you're lacking in certain nutrients, how are you feeling?
Mm-hmm.
And really recently over the pandemic is when I really started listening to my body. I started keeping a journal of how foods affect me. And so that's vital knowledge to share. So thank you so much for doing that. We've got just a few more questions popping in here.
Can I respond to that first?
Oh, yeah.
I want to say that when this first came out, I sent out a flyer to everybody. And I just said, how are you going to approach this? And let me recommend that we approach it by saying, this is my opportunity to make my body as healthy and strong and resilient as possible, so that I will be prepared for whatever comes along. And I put out, this is at the very, very beginning, I put out, make sure your zinc and your D and your other levels are okay. And I talked about how to monitor that. And then with time, it became really evident that those were some of the biggest players. So yeah, it's there's just so many ways we can be empowered that we need to step forward into. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Let's see, let me scroll up here. People are chiming in, so that's good. We've got a few people in a couple areas around Washington State are looking to see if you know of any naturopaths in their area. So one is Spokane and one is Whidbey Island.
You're welcome to call me, and we can, what I would say is let's look at the yellow pages or whatever in that area, and then I am happy to discuss with you if I happen to know somebody in that area that I think is stellar.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here's another one, and I'm probably going to mess this up, but do you have any experience with Sjogren's syndrome? Sjogren's syndrome, and any recommendations how to treat it?
Well, it's kind of like everything else. It can be caused by different things. So it is individual. So if I was treating you in person, I would ask your body what it needs to correct that. One of the things I do use is acupuncture. And nutritionally, I cannot tell you what I would use for you. When you go to someone, they will determine what it is that your body's asking for. And I hope that makes sense now from what I said in the talk, what that means.
Okay.
Recently, I had a gal come to me she comes to me once a year. She's so healthy. I see her once a year for a physical. And she came because she had a rash. And it's like, she'd never had a rash before. It was a brand new symptom. And so for the entire hour that I spent with her, I kept asking her questions. Well, this, well, that, because I was trying to get to the source of the problem, cause-based medicine. We could just give her a cream, we could give her an ointment, we could give her whatever, but that didn't make any sense because she didn't have rashes. So why the rash? So I wasn't really satisfied by the end of our meeting that I'd come up with the problem. And as I walked her out to her car, I noticed she didn't even recognize her own car. And I had noticed that she was a little ditzy, but not that extreme. And when I saw that, I was like, wow. So I kind of pulled her husband aside and I said, what's going on? She didn't even recognize the car. And he said, oh, did she tell you that she has an impacted tooth? And I said, no, if she had, I wouldn't have had to do all that work because I believe that's why she has the rash. So when she eventually got her tooth pulled, the rash went away immediately. So rashes are often the body trying to excrete toxins that aren't getting out the way they're supposed to. So, it's something to ask, why have I got these rashes? Another person came to me go to a regular MD. I said, well, you won't work with me if you don't. You need to have this evaluated. And as we were speaking and working on, her intake, I asked her to open her mouth and her mouth was full of snags. I mean, she just had a bunch of rotten teeth. I was just like, well, you gotta be kidding me. But she also wouldn't go to a dentist. So I said, well, that's not an option anymore. I don't care how much you don't like dentists or MDs, you're going to deal with both of those. And so she went to my dentist friend and he pulled a number of her teeth and said she had 7 abscesses that she hadn't dealt with. Long story short, it was throat cancer, and it was throat cancer secondary, I'm sure, to the amount of poisons that was draining into her system for years and years. And the byproducts of rotting teeth is one of the most toxic things you can expose yourself to. So it's really important to address tooth health. Also with the root canals, a lot of times there can be some infection underneath, or even when the tooth is pulled, sometimes there's still some infection that is residual and needs to be addressed. So if and sometimes that's really hard to find. You need to do special types of testing, not just the normal x-rays. You have to have a special equipment to sometimes read what's going on in there. But um, if we have an infection in our teeth, it's going to cause problems, period, one way or another. Which brings up something I didn't really talk about, which is toxins in general. One of the things that naturopaths do is we try to get to the bottom of what kind of toxic exposure it might be causing limitations in our health. Because fluoride, for instance, it suppresses the thyroid, and that's one of the reasons probably thyroid is such a rampant issue. And it also crystallizes the pineal gland. And I trained in that, but recently I had a young man call me and said he had been to a dentist that actually did CAT scans, which sounds kind of wild, and the dentist said that his pineal gland was crystallized, and that actually about half of the people that they took them CAT scans on did have a problem with that. And I asked the man, I said, well, did you happen to grow up in a fluoridated community? He says, oh, yes, I did. And he also had mentioned that his wife, who did not have a crystallized pineal gland, was on well water. So just interesting things that there's so many different things that we have to take aggressive, active control over, because our environment is not a safe one right now. There's a huge difference between eating GMO foods and not eating GMO foods. The pesticides used are, the way they work with bugs is to destroy their digestive tract. So I don't know how they could figure that it doesn't going to hurt our digestive tracts. And I think that that is one of the pieces that's making digestion so such a big issue now. I mean, I'd say almost everybody has a gut issue now. I mean, it's just huge, and a tremendous amount of anxiety, especially in the 30-year-olds and younger, just so much anxiety, so much OCD. Okay, hope I answered that and more.
No, that was great. Thank you so much for that. Just another personal comment for myself. We were on well water, and I grew up with well water. My parents are on a well as well. And then the city recently put chlorine in our water, and instantly it's like, I can't drink this. This is horrible.
When I go to somebody's house, they're in town, I smell the water and I just go like, oh, can anybody use this? But we get numbed out to it because we can't smell it. But because I'm on a well, I just can't even begin to drink it in a restaurant or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I have to pay an extra expense to have spring water delivered to me. Because there's no way I'm going to drink that. And, filters, you can buy faucet filters, but they can only go so long.
Well, the thing about chlorine is if you leave the water out, it will evaporate. Or if you cook with it, it will evaporate.
Okay.
Fluoride will not. It will concentrate. Okay. So there's no way, and it will not be taken out by most filters. It actually only reverse osmosis, I believe. So, and fluoride is, they've associated chlorine with the beginning of hardening of the arteries. They've associated fluoride with all kinds of stuff. It's just damaging. It lowers IQ. I mean, I don't know what people have already heard, but it's nasty, and causes brittle bone disease. I once had a friend fall in front of me, and she was older, and her prove that. It's just ways of watching patterns again and saying, people that are on fluoridated water tend to have crystallized pineal glands. That's interesting. And the pineal gland is so, it has to do with sleep again. So is that part of why we have so much anxiety and lack of sleep? Anyway, because it has to do with melatonin. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I didn't realize that it was the fluoride was concentrated and you can't cook it out. So that's
Yeah.
really good to know. We'll take one more question, and this is great. You guys have a lot of great questions here. We'll take one more before we close the meeting. So does this also apply to fluoride treatments from dental appointments?
Absolutely. You know, they say, oh, it's just on your teeth. Well, you don't think skin absorbs? Skin absorbs tremendously. So the sad thing is, we got people in fluoridated communities doing fluoride on their teeth, using fluoride toothpaste. And if you ever look at these little, the water for children. And one day I picked up this, it's got that, you know, like a gallon of water, and it's got a little pink lid and a little baby's face. Darling, this is for your baby, right? And one of the main things it has in it is fluoride. So this baby is getting it from all directions. And it's like, oh my goodness. uh, yeah, I have a lot to say about fluoride. We kept it out of the Sequim community. There was just a handful of us that fought it. And so I have 2 volumes about this thick with research about fluoride
Oh, wow.
from all over the world. And yeah, I have a lot to say about that.
Wow. Man, I think I could talk to you all day, Crystal. That was so much great information you shared. Thank you so much for taking the time to present to our members today. With
Oh,
that, we will go ahead.
Okay,
Oh, yeah,
so
go
my
ahead.
closing statement is the best, cheapest way to be embraced in a healthy lifestyle as much as possible is to be outdoors. There's so much healing energy in the outdoors that will support you and sustain you, and it doesn't cost a thing. And the whole thing with earthing, our frequency, our vibration needs the vibration of the earth to be healthy. And it's hard now to really connect with that vibration if you don't go outside and you're hanging out with things that have a whole different frequency all the time. And so, you know, there's earthing pads that you can also use that will help bring you back to that frequency. And for some people, that's the whole thing. I had an older lady who had horrible anxiety and she couldn't sleep. I just bought her an earthing pad, plugged it in, and she slept like a baby. So there's just so many different ways that we can embrace health and explore. The most important thing is to explore. And I want to say, sorry about that. I want to say that my website, if anybody wants to call me and ask questions or connect with me, I'm more than happy to do that. And my email that I am most attached to here is Crystal. It's that simple. Crystal at Olypen, Olypen, for Olympic Peninsula, Crystal at Olypen.com. And my website is drcrystaltack.com. So it's just drcrystaltack.com. And you can read more about my approach on the website. And I don't know how to turn my phone off, obviously. See, I'm so inclined to these things. Anyway, sorry about that.
No worries.
So anything else, my dear?
I don't think so. Thank you for sharing your email and your website. We had a lot of great questions today, and we have a lot of people chiming in saying thank you. Yeah, and one more quick question: where can they get? Okay. Where can they get
for hours? I love this stuff.
Where can they get an earth pad?
Oh, look online.
There you go. Look online, Jill. And you can also take your shoes off
and walk on the earth.
And walk on the earth on your bare feet. It's called grounding. So that's another way to connect.
Maybe it's called a grounding pad, earth pad. I don't know. It's grounding pad.
Either way, it has to do with earth.
It does. It has to do with matching. It's apparently, and I've never looked this up to know if it's true. So maybe somebody else will and they can tell me, or maybe I will someday. But the concept is, even in outer space, we have to have the frequencies of the earth, and they actually use those frequencies in the space capsule for the people to stay healthy, because we are so dependent on being in harmony with the earth. I just think that's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. Well, thanks again, Crystal. And I'm sure a lot of our folks will be reaching out to you for sure.
It's been fun. Thank you very much. I'd love to just talk to you in general. So it'd be fine. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
It's fun.
absolutely.
Thank
You're welcome.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye
Crystal.
now.
Okay, everyone. So before we adjourn our meeting for the day, I just have a few quick reminders for everyone. I just want to remind you about the lunch reimbursement again. I won't go through that whole spiel again because Kimberly's going to do the same thing to you tomorrow. So please make sure that you're saving your lunch receipts for today and tomorrow so you can submit those to our finance director. And then the bingo sheets, hold on to your bingo sheet because we're going to keep filling in those spaces during tomorrow's meeting. You'll want to participate in bingo because where we are purchasing the prizes is actually a really cool site, and you guys could look into the site yourselves if you wanted to use it to incentivize some of your employees for your internal wellness activities. It's called loopandtie.com, TIE, and you have to spell out and. So that's loopandtie.com. So this is where you can decide what the amount is. And then basically you can type a message, it generates an email, and it sends it to the person you'd like to give the prize to. And then they're able to choose what gift they want. And it's full of all different types of wellness related items that are really cool. We've used this for our WCIF staff wellness challenges. And so we're going to use it for you guys too. So you'll want to play bingo. And then the blackout, if anyone gets a blackout tomorrow, we will put you in a raffle to receive some Amazon gift cards. So those are our big prizes. So all of the bingo, for the bingo prizes, they're all raffles, just to let you know. And then I guess our last thing is join us for happy hour. So take a half hour, go let your hair down, grab yourself a drink, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcoholic drink. We welcome our exhibitors to come, our speakers to come. Just a great time to, kind of, I guess, decompress from, sitting in front of the screen all day, even though we're going to sit in front of it again for virtual happy hour. But you don't necessarily have to talk about work, but it's just a good time to get together. So would love to see some of you guys in there. And like I said, BYOB, bring your own beverage. And then be sure to come back to the Whova application and check into that happy hour. I believe that will be under that might be under the community session, or it says networking table. You'll be able to find it there. If you can't, shoot me a chat and I'll get you there. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll chat soon.